Welcome to our podcast, Happy Household. We appreciate you listening in. Ben and I started this podcast to share some insights on what we have found successful and maybe what wasn't so successful. Our hope is that we can help each of you in some small way while getting to spend some quality time together. We feel the key to a successful relationship is trust and communication. Whether it be with friends, family, or significant others, open communication builds trust and creates a home that can become a happy household.
Well, hello, Sweet Pea.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm a little tired today, but other than that, I'm okay.
Yeah, well, join the club.
Yeah. Just want to say hey to everybody out there. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, we appreciate you stopping by and joining us on our little
wild and crazy journey.
Yeah, I like it. So today I thought maybe we would talk a little bit about romance, or maybe the lack of, depending on where this wild ride goes.
And romance can be defined in so many different ways, so it's going to be really interesting because I'm going to kind of be able to pick his brain a little bit about what it means to a man versus a woman. You know, because a lot of the back and forth can be, they think they're meeting that need and they're not meeting that need, or they're missing it because the lack of communication is not assisting the situation. So
right. So I know we've had this discussion before about romance and being romantic, and I know
what that means to both of us. Yeah.
What I was going to say is I know that I have a tendency to fail quite frequently in that department. Now, I don't know. I can't speak for all men in general because, I'm only one man. But I wanted to kind of talk about my perspective on this whole thing. I did do a little digging around here, and
can I insert something really, really quick before you go into that? I want to make sure you understand you did not fail. We don't say fail. Yes, you can learn from your failures. I get that, but you are not failing. You are learning and growing, and it's okay to misstep.
But
we both have misstep.
No.
So I don't want you to feel like, oh, I have failed. And maybe that was in reference to like past ones, but just know with me that, I understand that we are both still growing in this department because our previous relationships didn't necessarily feed into that.
I understand where you're coming from by not using the word failure. But I do want to say it from my point of view is that just because I failed, I don't see it as a bad thing, right? Because if I fail at something, then I realize that I have to look, learn, adjust, and grow from that point. So when I say that there are quite a few times that I fail in the romantic department, I'm not using that as a derogatory term, right? I did look up.
So you did a little bit of research.
Yeah, I was
kind of interested to see what this research is.
It's not like I did a, total nerd dive into the subject, but I was.
Hey, nerds are cute. We like nerds.
I was just glancing through Psychology Today, and I was looking in according to the website, romance. There's a big difference between romance and sex, which we already knew. We kind of knew that, right? And in most relationships, you either want one to be great, but you can't have one to be great without fully engaging the second, right? Romance needs to be a constant in the relationship. And even though romance is not an extremely difficult task to perform.
Some people it can be, though.
Well, it's not difficult. I mean, when I say it's not difficult, I mean it doesn't require a lot of materials. It doesn't require a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot of research. It doesn't take a lot of that stuff, right? It just takes just a little bit. It's not that difficult to do. And everybody, I don't care who you are, you've seen at least one romantic comedy or one romantic movie in your life. There's your guidelines, right? The stuff that they do on those shows is the true outline of being romantic. But unfortunately, most of the people today, they just don't do it.
Well, part of the, dare I say, insecurities from the romance department is because movies make it seem
So
like,
easy,
well, yes,
natural.
part of that, but part of it is, yeah, I've watched thousands, hundreds and thousands of romantic comedies. It's one of my favorite genres.
Genre.
Some of that stuff is a bit extreme. And
Yeah.
it can be like, well, I see, especially from, a woman's point of view, it puts in their head, well, he's not doing this. So is it really romance? You have to really remember that this is not real life.
Yeah.
Real
Oh, yeah.
life is a man showing up, is a man making an effort to spend time with you, is a man, grand romantic gestures can be something as simple as we're living paycheck to paycheck, but he still brought home flowers.
Right.
It might have been he stopped on the side of the road and got you wildflowers, but guess what?
Hey.
He thought of you.
Right.
And I think that is kind of what you're meaning is there's a basis where you can kind of do a little bit of research about what really is romantic. Sometimes romance is just having a conversation with your partner
Well, and that's
and
what I
being
was.
silly.
Yeah, and that was one thing that I was going to say is it usually takes just a little trial and error and a conversation between the two of you, right? And we've had those conversations, and I know that from a personal standpoint, I struggle a lot with comprehension of the whole necessity for it. And I do try to make sure that I do the little things that become romantic for us. It's difficult for me to keep on top of that and constantly keep doing it. And to kind of give a little definition to my word here is as I grew up as a kid, through my entire childhood, I never, not once, ever saw anything romantic between my mom and dad. Never. I think I can only remember one or two times I've ever seen my folks hold hands.
But see, I think that's where the definition of romantic is a little skewed because to me, romance is, I've even talked to your mom and your mom has made dinner for your dad every day the entire time they have been married. That to me is romantic. Your dad goes out and works his butt off so his wife has a roof over her head and she doesn't have to worry about pinching pennies. That's romantic. It's building a life together. Yes, romance in the grand scheme of taking her out on dates and things like that.
Movies and gifts.
It's more than that to me. Like, yes, these romantic movies are let's, go out on dates and this and that and this and that, and that's great. But what are you doing in your daily life that is romantic?
Right.
And a lot of people would say, well, that's required. You're the man. You're supposed to be, or you're the woman and you're supposed to help provide and blah, blah, blah. You know what? Whatever your opinion is, cool, great. But you're building a life together. You're making it a point to ensure that this person that you've chosen to be with is taken care of. How can you get more romantic than that?
Right.
Great. Flowers are wonderful. Flowers die.
Right. Except for the ones that I get you.
Yeah, the ones that you get me here.
Once I get you,
Yeah.
never die.
Never die.
Yep.
And going out on dates is great and spending that time together is important, but making a conscious decision to put somebody else's needs above your own, I don't know how it gets more romantic than that. So I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on your parents because I've seen it.
Right.
And maybe they're a little bit older now and I haven't been around as long as you have, but like I see that with your parents,
Right.
them picking on each other. My gosh, you can see the love there. You can.
You can. I guess.
But it's your parents. You have a different view than I do.
I guess from my point of view, I guess that what I see day in and day out is I don't even want to use this word because the word is not quite right, but it's the way I remember and the way I see my folks is more like coexisting, right? I mean, that's kind of a bad word to use for the definition, but it's the only one that seems to come to mind right off the rip. And maybe it's because my definition of romance is wrong, which is very well possible, right?
Not wrong. It's just a different version of what it means to you.
Okay, because when we watch those romantic shows, right? Not necessarily my favorite, but I'll sit down and watch them with you because it's time together, and I don't mind them.
I'm trying to teach him, guys. I'm trying. I'm doing my level best here. Send prayers and well wishes. Just kidding, guys.
And My defense, I'm a very logical left brain person.
Okay, let me add to that because it is proven that men are more logical and women are relational. I don't remember where
Right.
I read that somewhere, but I've read it multiple times on
Right.
many different articles, many different, to try to understand how to better communicate with you, how to better support you, to how to better communicate, all of that. And in my research, and my mom can attest to this too, she's great at kind of helping me because we want to make sure that we are understanding what we are doing to the other person. Men are more logical.
Right.
There's a running joke, and I can't remember who said it or what YouTube video I watched from like a professor who I can't remember who it was. They literally were saying like a man's brain is like an apartment complex.
Right.
And, I don't want to take credit for any of this, though. I didn't think of this. I just happened to see it on YouTube somewhere. You could probably research men versus women brain apartment, and it'll come up. But he was basically saying that a man's brain is like an apartment complex. They can walk in a room and focus on something and walk out and shut the door and be done with it. A woman is like a high speed
She walks
interstate
into a warehouse.
It's literally like a high speed interstate that is all woven in with everything that she's doing, and it's flowing just like it should be, but we don't compartmentalize like men do. We are not logical like that. We are relational. We want to understand how the connections will be. That's why it's, dare I say, men can somewhat shut their brain off, and women feel like, well, you're not listening. No, they can't multitask. Like, great to the men who have figured out how to do that. But like men, their brains are not designed to multitask. They are designed to focus on one thing at a time.
I think we can multitask, but only to a certain extent.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, we can multitask just fine, but it's not, maybe not to the degree. Like we might be doing two things at the same time, and we might be doing 70% of one and 30 of the other.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing 50-50. We're doing 70 or 80 of one and 30 and 20 of the other. So it is a multitask, but it's
yours looks different than a woman's.
right.
Like a woman can be cooking dinner, having a deep, in-depth conversation with somebody, and be balancing her checkbook all at one time.
Right.
And still be fully engaged in. Now, when I say fully engaged, I don't mean you need to make sure you're active listening to this, but that's what I mean. Because in their brain, it's the checkbook has to be balanced because the kids need food, or, we have a vacation that we're planning or whatever. They can be doing 1,000 other things, which is funny because a lot of people go, you're doing 1,000 other things. Are you really listening to me? I've had that conversation with my mom so many times. I'm like, Mom, I'm sorry. I've got to like literally shut my brain off to have a one-on-one conversation with you. And then we get off tangents. We have 3 conversations in one conversation. Anyway, I digress. As far as the romance goes, men are more logical.
Right. It's harder for us for that stuff to come free and easy, and a lot of times
to some men it does. Though.
Yeah, well, some men it probably comes easy to, right? And I also believe that, in different stages of a relationship, it will come easier to men, right? Mm-hmm. And you may not like hearing this, but when we first started dating, it was probably easier for me to be a little more romantic than it is now. Now it has to be more of a focus. I have to think, okay, I have to do this. I have to do that.
But can you explain to me why that is, though? Because
I'm not sure I understand why.
As you get to know somebody, shouldn't it be easier because you know their likes and dislikes?
No, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think, and now that I think about it, when you said something about, my mom does this and my dad does that, I think the longer we are together, maybe, and this is where I'm losing sight of the goal here, is maybe my romance is changing gears, right? So when we first started dating, it was, bringing over a flower or sending that text message. Of course, we call and text all the time, so that's not really missing there either. But it was the little things. Maybe I might have done flowers a little more often, or Now, where I'm going with it is now that are now living in the same house, maybe my romantic goals are more making sure that the house is fixed, making sure that the mortgage is paid, making sure that, there's a little nest egg in the thing. So if we need a little extra cash, or if there's something around, maybe that's where I'm losing sight of my romance. According to you, that's part of it.
But again, I want to specify romance is different than sexual stuff. Romance is different than intimacy. Yes. What gets so confusing is the intimacy portion, which is exactly what you just explained. The intimacy of connecting with that person is missing. And everybody goes, well, they're not romantic. Romance is
part of intimacy.
It's only a part of it. The intimacy portion, yes. That's the taking out on dates. That's the purposely taking time out of your day with this person or whatever it is that you guys are going to do, just the two of you. I'm going to kind of, how do I want to say this? I honestly think that some of the reason that men find it easier at the beginning of the relationship, and I'm going to be very blunt when I say this, so don't come at me, people.
You'll have to come to me first.
Once somebody has somebody, they don't feel like they have to work as hard. Guess what? You do still have to work hard because that person is worth it. Especially if you've chosen to be with that person. You still have to do the work.
Yeah.
More so because at that point, in your brain, it should click into something of, I have more to lose here. I'm going to keep this. Right. It is something I love. It is someone I love. And I don't want to even allow the opportunity for them to feel like they aren't as important as they were when we first started dating.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the difference in romance versus intimacy, that's where that intimacy piece comes in. Is, are you going to take the time to let your person know that you still value them, if not just as much more than you did when you were dating? Because there is more at stake. That person's heart is at stake. And to me, that's where being romantic of bringing flowers and things like that is great, and providing a home is great. And I really appreciate it. And I'm sure everybody else appreciates that from their partner as well. But it's the intimacy that so often gets missed in the romance piece. And it all gets thrown under the booklet of, well, he's not romantic or she's not romantic. Look at what you have, at who you have, and what they are doing to make your life easier. Don't take that for granted. So it's a small piece of it all.
So the intimacy part is more of the one-on-one that has a higher potential of being missed. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about just the sex part, but just,
that's a part in and of itself.
Right. I mean that can be intimate, but it's more intimate is more of a one-on-one, regardless of whether it is sex or watching TV, holding hands, just a dinner between the two of you, or are you going out or in or whatever. I don't know about doing like landscaping, because I know we've gone outside.
Well, I think it depends on the couple. Yeah. Landscaping for us is a lot of fun because, first of all, you get to play on tractors and big boy toys, and we like to do that kind of stuff. Right. So for us, we make it a point to say, hey, we're going to do this together.
Right, but that's the one time I'm talking about, which falls underneath the romantic umbrella per se.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so maybe I'm just looking at it wrong, and judging my what I call quote unquote failures is not failures. I'm just looking at them completely wrong.
Yeah, I think to each their own.
Right.
Romance has a different definition for everybody. Intimacy has a different definition for everybody. But again, I'm going to say it again. It's that communication piece, is that connection piece, that you have to be honest with the person that you're with. If they're not meeting a need, they can't read your mind.
No.
Unless...
No, I am not. And I've told you that from a long time standing.
Unless they're like a cool Avenger dude that can read minds or something like that. Like what is that girl, Mantis is her name in Avengers?
Oh, yeah.
Unless you're Mantis and you can like read their mind. They can't read your mind. No. You have to speak up.
Yeah, I've told you that from day one. I can't read your mind. You want me to do something? You better spell it out nice, crystal, and clear, because I'm not the kind of person that's going to try to jump to conclusions, because usually when I do, boy, do I miss that
Yeah.
mark.
Well, and I think to add on to that, we had that conversation right up front
Right.
of what our expectations were from our partner and what we were looking for and what we weren't looking for. You know, at that point, I think it was easier to have that conversation at the beginning of the relationship, because
Right.
there was nothing really at stake.
No.
If it didn't work out, we could be friends.
Right.
There, no hard feelings, nothing. But it was literally one of our first conversations on the phone. We laid it all out and we said, this is what I've been through. This is what I'm willing to accept, what I'm not willing to accept. And we got very lucky that they aligned. Aside from one little tidbit, which we won't go into right now. He knows which one that one is.
Sure, I do.
The subject of marriage.
Oh,
Um,
we had that discussion though too.
and we did have that discussion later down the road. But we laid it all out right there at the beginning of the relationship, so that, and it came from a good place, because we didn't want to waste our time, nor did we want to waste each other's time, because
we didn't want to hurt each other either, because we'd already been through.
well, that's what I mean, is we didn't want to
We'd already
waste each
been
other's
through
time.
so much stuff through previous stuff that there was enough scarring there that there was no need to add to that.
Right.
So why take the chance?
Right.
Put it all up front. You know, and that way there's no feelings to get hurt throughout that scenario, because there's, like you said, there's nothing involved. There's nothing at stake at first.
Right.
So the feelings don't get damaged.
They
They're
don't
like,
get in
okay,
the way of
this. You know, you don't want this. Hey, no problem. No worries. Bye. See ya.
Yeah.
And it makes that transition a lot less painful.
Yeah.
I would dare say.
Yeah, but I think that both of us were at a position where we were honestly okay being single. We didn't have to be with somebody in any way to be fulfilled. We fulfilled ourselves. We made ourselves happy, because we understood at that point that you can't make me happy.
No.
As much as I love you and as much as I love our life together, you cannot make me happy.
Well,
it is my responsibility to make me happy, as it is yours.
Right.
So we didn't put that pressure on the other person to say, you have to make me happy.
Well,
What are you going to do for me?
And I had been going through quite a bit of therapy right off the rip. And that's what my therapist was trying to get me to
Not
understand.
through anything I did, guys.
No, before I met you, right?
Now he's in therapy because of me. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Although I probably should go back.
It's a good thing. I
think
fully
anybody
support
could,
it.
Right. But that was the one thing that I was trying to figure out before I started seeing you, before I even met you,
Mm-hmm.
is that in order for me to make somebody happy,
Mm-hmm.
I have to first be able to make myself happy.
Right.
So I had to do things that I wouldn't normally do to make sure I knew what made myself happy. Because if I can't make myself happy, you can't make me happy, and I can't make you happy. It is a nasty little circle, but once you kind of grasp the concept a little bit and start running with it, it all starts playing out fairly simple.
Yeah. And I think that, you make a good point, because it took the pressure off.
Right.
Like, we could just put out our business and say, this is what I'm willing to accept. This is what I'm not willing to accept.
And you could go have fun without the proverbial landmine of tripping over.
Yeah.
From time to time.
Yeah. But I think
we still do, but I mean,
well, you know what I mean? Like, I
stage.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head. Is before we met each other, we had done the work within ourselves to be ready for each other.
Right.
And
for sure.
We were able to have that conversation of, here's where I'm at. Where are you at? How you feeling about this? Is this something are you just here to like play around? Because I'm not cool with that. Like,
right.
So I think we were both ready, because, you had been in therapy and I had been dealing with all my stuff and healing from a lot of that. And I think that kind of allowed us to start off on a good foundation.
Right.
To build the relationship that we have now. And that's not to say that we're not still building that.
Right. Oh yeah, and we
never will stop, but
there's always room for improvement of our relationship. You can always go back and revisit that foundation and double check to make sure that you got that the individual, like myself, I can go back and I can check that stuff and say, you know what, that I like that. You know, I think it's still a good idea to do some things, not necessarily separate, but you have to go out and try new things in order to know if that makes you happy, and look at it with the right set of glasses. Say, okay, I think this is cool. And then you can say, well, do you think this is cool? And if you're like, yes, or even if you're like, no, like, well, that's cool because I still like it, right? Don't just scratch it off because your better half says, yeah, it's not necessarily my thing. That's something that you can do every once in a while. You can do on your own if you want to.
Yeah. We're still individuals, but we're part of a team.
Right.
We just happen to get lucky enough to love each other and want to spend the rest of our lives together. So, well, we'd love to hear you guys' thoughts about what romance means to you versus intimacy or anything along those lines. We definitely appreciate you guys taking the time to drop us a line and give us your feedback and stuff like that. And if there's any specific topics that you guys want us to talk about or kind of share our viewpoints about, please leave us a comment or email or anything like that. We definitely appreciate you guys taking the time to reach out and communicate with us.
Yep. And like she said, feel free to drop us a line. We're on Facebook and YouTube. Both of those. You can hear these podcasts on both of those. You can also hear them on Spotify. You can Spotify, we would much appreciate it. We're able to have stars. So give us 1, give us 2, give us 5, whatever you think we're worth. We would much appreciate it. And any of those thoughts or questions can be, like I said, sent through Facebook or YouTube. And they can also be emailed to us at happyhouseholdpodcast@gmail.com. And with that, we will see you next time.
Adios.
Bye.